Hello, everyone. My name's Duncan White, and welcome to the International Fire and Safety Journal Leaders in Podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by the team from Bridgehill. Nikolai, hello, my friend. How are you?
Hi, Duncan. How you doing? Great talking to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's always a pleasure. Nikolai, for the benefit of the listener, tell us a little bit about yourself and Bridgehill.
All right. So my name is Nikolai Henriksen. I'm head of sales for the U.S. So I've been in charge of that market since I started working at Bridgehill. A little bit about Bridgehill. We are a pioneering company. We introduced what is EV-rated fire blankets to the world. It all started on a fire here in a city called Lardal, where the founder of the company decided to come up with to some fabrics to handle these types of fires that then developed into what we call the two core fabrics that we have, pyroxene and graphite, that enabled us to now provide that to fires, EV rated fire blankets. So lithium fires, anything that has to do with lithium-ion battery fires, and that jumps into electric vehicles.
Excellent, and I can tell you that the name Bridgehill is certainly synonymous with quality, and especially in respect of this subject. So, I'm not forgetting you, Paul. Come and tell us about yourself, my friend.
Hi, thank you, Duncan. Yeah, my name is Paul Amundsen. I'm actually the first employee with Bridgehill many years ago. So I'm the senior head of sales for Europe. So now like joined forces with Europe and the US.
Excellent, and so we've got the best of both sides of the pond, as they say, and. So for the listener, we've got a great 20-25 minutes ahead of us looking at our fire blankets dangerous, and whatever our opinions are now, let's listen to the experts and see exactly what's going to happen. So there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of issues around safety and the effectiveness of fire blankets. So from your perspectives, what are the biggest misconceptions, and how do these blankets actually work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that it's really important to understand the difference between suppression and containment. And I think this is such a crucial piece of information because there's a lot of expectations, there's a lot of protocols and um, moves to handle an EV fire or any fire if you're thinking that suppression is the same as containment. So that's definitely one of the most important things that we will be covering through this conversation. And I think we want to make sure that that's clear. Understand the difference. And the main reason is because there's a lot of toxic gases coming from EV fires. And this highlights the importance of containment. And not only for firefighters, but for civilians, because there's going to be windy conditions. The other problem is going to be there's going to be a reignition risk when it comes to lithium-ion battery fires. So for those who do not know this, a battery fire or a battery in a battery pack can have in a vehicle around 7,000 battery cells. And they do not reignite at the same time. So this is why you can have one event now, another event in 30 minutes, other batteries burning, reignite in 2 hours, another one in 4. So that amount of time that a vehicle is burning together with really dangerous gases spreading to civilians highlights the importance of a different approach on, especially in situations where you may find a highly populated area. And it's a new tool. This is why we're having this conversation. People do not know how to correctly utilize a fire. Like you may think to yourself, okay, so if you drink a hot cup of coffee and you run with it, like almost everyone that is an adult is drinking coffee in a daily basis, but no one's running with them, right? It's not like you're running with a hot cup of coffee, burning yourself. Everyone knows how to correctly drink a hot cup of coffee. Same thing applies with a fire blanket. You need to understand what it's doing, what's happening underneath the blanket to utilize it correctly. Firefighters find themselves also in situations where they're utilizing hydraulic rescue tools that can be very dangerous. If you utilize them correctly, you can kill someone in the process. So it's about it's just about utilizing correctly a tool, understanding it. And firefighters already have knowledge that they have that needs to be just guided to correctly understand how to utilize fire blankets.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to add that, of course, as a car fire blanket or a fire blanket manufacturer, when it comes to a lithium ionized battery fire, we never say that we put the fire out, but we do isolate and contain the battery fire, and just let the battery itself safely burn out underneath the blanket. Because I see a lot of misconception about that online, LinkedIn, social media. Well, it's impossible to put the fire out because it's self-sufficient with oxygen. But yeah, we know that. The main purpose with the blanket is to contain and isolate the toxic gases and make sure that, of course, the fire will not spread.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the use of fire blankets is nothing new to firefighters, and the concept in respect of the isolation of the oxygen is well known. But like any new product, there's a need for training. There's a need for knowledge and understanding, and this is why fire blankets are no exception. And you're quite right that using a fire blanket on an EV vehicle fire is a lot different than using it on a vehicle that is running on petroleum or diesel. But used in the correct way, they can both have the desired outcome. So we know that electric vehicles present a set of unique challenges, and especially with thermal runaway and reignition. So what do first responders need to understand about the battery fire behavior? And I suppose as a follow up to that, how can the tools like fire blankets support containment rather than extinction?
Yeah, so I think that going back a little bit of what we just covered, and is that they need to understand, that water is going to generate one result, containment is going to generate a different result. When you compare water and containment, I think one of the biggest differences you're going to find is that actually containment becomes very reliable. Once you deploy this on a car, you know that the protocol is deploying it, the smoke is going to stop, the flames are going to stop, the spread of fire is going to stop. You're controlling the environment. No one's going to get spread. Is drastically reduced. The amount of heavy metals spread to the environment drastically reduced. And that's the same protocol. You deploy this in under a minute, and then you go through the same steps. The only difference it's going to be that every vehicle will burn and a different stage and a different level and a different amount of time. Other than that, it's very, very reliable. When it comes to water, you're talking about a more volatile situation. Well, you do not know how much amount of water you're going to need to put out the initial thermal event. You do not know when the second thermal event is going to start. You do not know if that's going to happen when you have already considered the fire it's being put out. Maybe it happens under transportation. Maybe it happens the next day at the towing yard facility. So all those little things become very difficult to deal. And those are some of the most important elements or pieces of information that firefighters need to understand. And that jumps right away into the reignition time problem. Like how many times can you reignite? And the thing is that firefighters, what we've learned by working with them is that they should always be dealing with this virus as if they're going to reignite. Because they do not have the tools. They cannot dismantle the battery from that vehicle at the location. They need to do this in another location. They need to transport that vehicle. Because of that, they should be dealing with that mindset, right? And if they can reignite under transportation, then you can't really drive a vehicle on a tow truck with a whole bunch of firefighters on top of it trying to suppress it. That's just not realistic. So having a fire blanket on top becomes a great protocol, right? And those are things that firefighters need to understand, not just at the fire there, but also what's going to happen eventually if you reignites at the location where they're going to be stored. And also, this is a piece of information that we're not hearing enough right now, and is that the biggest challenges that we're seeing right now is these toxic metals. We're talking about copper, nickel, manganese, and cobalt, heavy metals that don't evaporate, wants to release to an environment that can stick on the walls and the floor. I would hate if there was a fire next to my home and firefighters were suppressing that with water instead of containing it. Because if it's going to burn for 4 hours, I know that my entire house, my yard, where children are going to be playing, it's going to be filled with heavy metals that I do not want to be exposed to, or anyone else. So these are pieces of information that are very important right now. We've seen situations where battery plants have been burning, and they found samples of the soil 2 miles away with all these heavy metals, with thousands of heavy metals moving with the wind, thousands of pounds of heavy metals, right? You can expect approximately 150 pounds of heavy metals on an EV fire. And very, very tiny, small doses of this can be enough for you to, as a civilian, to start having health problems. So this becomes a post-contamination risk, not only for firefighters, but also for civilians.
Yeah, and there can also be a risk also with using large amounts of water inside confined spaces like a sub-level parking garage, for example. Using large amounts of water, you have big vapor clouds, huge gases. Also can be challenging in regards of penetrating the firefighter bunker gear. We've seen examples of that in Europe as well. So firefighters' health, we have to think about that as well. And then for me, I have seen tests with firefighters going inside. For example, you have vehicles with an entrance, so you can fill the battery pack with water. But then when I see the firefighter engulfed in those steams and gases, and I know what's coming out of that battery pack, I would just put a fire blanket on and just stay away from it if possible. Yeah.
The fire blanket is, when you having been to more vehicle fires than I care to mention, the whole benefit of the fire blanket, of stopping the toxic gases, removing the oxygen, putting the fire out. I think when you look at the initial fire attack and the thousands and thousands of gallons of water that are normally put on a vehicle fire, that then creates the issue of the environmental impact of where that water is going. Because you talk about the heavy metals, Nikolai, and when we talk about the environmental impact, sustainability, this is all things that should now be going through the fire commander's thought process to say, how are we going to mitigate the damage on the environment, on the residents within the immediate areas. And as you say, the fire blanket ticks all those boxes. And at the point when they feel that the fire's out and the blanket can be safely removed, if there are still a number of small smouldering hot spots within the interior, then a very small amount of water will deal with that. So again, I just wanted to pick up and touch on the issue of the recovery operators, because both emergency responders and fire and recovery play a hand in this whole process in relation to the safe removal and disposal. And the fire blanket, in my view, there should be no need to remove that at all from the vehicle until it is safely contained within a facility where it can be managed. And the whole discussion then comes on to who is responsible for that vehicle at the point that the firefighters believe that they've done their job. It's there's a number of unknown questions, but it's questions that really all the players in this game should be answering and coming up with a protocol. In an ideal world, every recovery truck will carry a Bridgehill fire blanket that they will give that to the firefighters, saying, this one will replace yours, we'll take yours on with us, and the process continues. I think we're fast forwarding a little bit into the ideal world, but I'm sure that we'll get there in the end. Safety protocols. You look now at any organisation, the safety protocols are there and there to be followed. Just explain, Nikolai, why the protocols that you recommend as Bridgehill are so important.
Yeah, so I think that protocols are a very, very important thing when it comes to firefighters, and it jumps into just understanding and being realistic. This is a new tool, right? That can be definitely misused if you don't understand what it's doing. We need to go back into the blankets are here to deprive an object from oxygen. That is happening, and then you need to understand what's the consequence of doing this when it comes to different scenarios. you know if you have like a class A fire, what's happening if you deploy the blanket in that situation? You can expect that there's not going to be any oxygen, so the object will no longer be able to burn. When it comes to a lithium fire, it's different because the lithium batteries are generating, elements that equal oxygen within them, that enable them to then continue to burn despite being in an environment deprived, in an oxygen deprived environment. That's one element. So they'll continue to do this. But also, there's going to be, in some situations, an increase of levels of fuel. When you're increasing the levels of fuel, this what the data showing is there's going to be an increase of hydrogen underneath the blanket. So now you have high levels of fuel, you have flames, and then you have to think about the fire triangle. And firefighters are really well trained on backdraft theory, which we're now utilizing to understand what a deflagration is, right? So understanding what needs to be done and how to remove the blanket. But that's the most important piece of information right now, is that as you have a fuel-rich environment, oxygen deprived with flames, you can create a backdraft, or a more correctly said, a deflagration incident by introducing oxygen. So it's understanding what's happening underneath the blanket. It's understanding that the tool is here to protect everyone, to stop that kind of post-contamination risk, and you need to utilize it correctly. So all you need to do is start thinking about fire triangle. When are the flames removed? When is the fuel removed? And these are very simple things to do. As temperatures start to decrease, there's going to be an absence of flames. As oxygen is smoke is no longer, as smoke or hydrogen is no longer under the blanket, then you're going to know the fuel levels are low. So what we recommend is to utilize thermal imaging cameras measuring the blankets. Once you're hitting approximately 150 Fahrenheit, you're able to start saying, okay, there should not be more any flames. And now you should be jumping into the second stage, which is there any type of high concentration of fuel? You can see this visually. A fire blanket, when you deploy it, you're going to have natural venting points where small doses of smoke will come through. When you don't see any more smoke, this is going to equal no more fuel, right? And you can also utilize atmosphere detectors without lifting the blanket, measuring the LEL levels, CO levels. And once they're at LEL 10% and CO below 33 ppm, that should be an indication that now you don't longer have heat and you don't have fuel, and now you can introduce oxygen. So these are really important things when it comes to our protocols to really empower firefighters to utilize them correctly.
Yeah, and I also like that, of course, that there is a challenge in the market today because Bridgehill, we have our own safety protocol, but we can also see that our competitors, they have their own protocols. So there are different protocols out there. So, of course, it can be challenging for a firefighter to go into one web page and see one protocol, then you have another protocol. Which protocol is the correct protocol? So that's like what I feel is the biggest challenge in our market today is like we need to have one protocol. And that's also when we come into the next question is, okay, we have the best protocol because you only need to use the blanket. You don't need to use any add-on products like aerosol grenades, or you don't need to use huge amounts of water on top of a deployed blanket, and you don't need to relift a blanket introducing oxygen when using a Bridgehill car fire blanket. So that's also you probably heard about the DIN spec and so on. That's also like an international uh, um, yeah
Certification.
certification coming up. But yeah, it's fine. But the thing is, we when it comes to our protocols, we have the strongest protocol, and the thing is, we have the strongest product, and we have also the easiest and safest protocol as well. Yeah.
Mm.
It's certainly, as you say, it's like we could sit here and list a whole range of standards that are applicable in different parts of the world, and we still see some countries picking and choosing bits of each standard to that suits themselves. But yes, I agree that there should be one protocol in respect of the deployment, and then if the product is good, then the product will deal with the issue sticking to those protocols. And as we know, that's exactly what a Bridgehill product does. But I think there are competitors out there that know that their product is not quite as robust, and if they apply those same terms, then things will clearly show very quickly. And we've touched on Bridgehill being the best and the production of the materials that make that. It's a bold claim. We've talked about a few things that back it up, but what would you guys say to customers that are looking at a number of solutions and why they should choose Bridgehill?
Yeah, so I think that one of the most natural ways to answer this question is to say that we are the pioneering company. We've spent all of our focus for more than a decade on developing the best textiles to deal with these fires. And that doesn't come, that comes with a lot of failing and continue to try and try on an error process. So we've been the longest in the industry. We've dedicated years of developing to create the best fabrics and the best bridge tech coating in order to have products that are now being utilized by firefighters for years. There's been even really recognized entities in some of the largest countries out there that they've tested the best blankets in their country and ended up choosing two, and at the end only go in and say, well, only the Bridgehill fire blanket passed all of our tests. This is third-party testing that has nothing to do with us, and that proves that we are the company who's been developing the best fabrics, the best technology when it comes to dealing with these fires. There's also situations where, unfortunately, we see a really wrong representation of fire blankets, where we see no development of technology whatsoever, and just fiberglass blankets being utilized to be sold as if they could, generate the same results as our fabrics in the market. And this is no development of technology; just is utilizing old fire blankets that have been there for years, just making them bigger and saying, "Hey, here you go. Utilize this on a car." It's so that bold statement of saying that we have a great quality. It also comes with customers need to understand that too. They need to take responsibility and start thinking, well, how can I know this? Do some research. We're living in an era of AI where you can definitely do a lot of research. I think the easiest thing you can do as a firefighter or customer is just like, what are the peak temperatures that you can reach on an EV fire, a lithium fire, and can this blanket handle that, right? And what's the coating? Is this a good coating? Is it on both sides? Is it going to isolate all those toxic metals? Is it going to be a breathable blanket? Do you want that? Do you want all those heavy metals to be spreading because there is no coating? There's also that side of the question, right?
Yeah, I think we actually we have like the best balanced product also out there because of course you have to think about weight, for example. It has to be usable for the firefighters as well, and of course the combination between the fabric that we use, but also the coating that Nicola mentioned, the Bridge Tech coating, is really important. That's our You can compare it to the secret Coca-Cola recipe. But also, of course, if you see through our product list, we also do sell fiberglass blankets, but we sell them as a training blanket, not to be used in a live fire. So we have a huge range of many types of different fire blankets, but as we mentioned, we will always strive to have the best quality products in the market. That's really important to us. And of course, when it really matters, if you have a really volatile EV fire with huge temperatures and so on, you should make sure that you have the best product available.
And I've written quite extensively in relation to procurement within the fire industry, and I still have huge concerns that the so-called self-labeled procurement professionals are not looking at the whole picture when they go about purchasing equipment for frontline firefighters, and very often the price becomes the governing factor. A little bird tells me that NASA may well have played a part in the Bridgehill fire blanket. Is there any truth in that?
Yes. So, so the founder and CEO of the company, Frank Brubakken, he started basically doing research and trying to figure out if there was any type of technology out there that could withstand very high peak temperatures. And NASA had created this inflatable shield that could withstand the high peak temperatures from going through the atmosphere. And then that empower him to then enabled him to then contact the company who have developed this technology, and then he started doing research. And it was incredibly expensive product and very, very high tech, but that enabled him to be able to get inspired and find textiles that then allowed us to have a more affordable product out there for firefighters and every first responder out there. Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show the level of integrity that Bridgehill have in relation to the product that they are putting out there for use by our first responders, and that's a huge credit. We're only going to see an increase in EV products, not just within vehicles, but also within the amount of products that are used within our homes now, be that in mobile telephones, electric scooters, etc., etc. So, in respect of that need for knowledge and understanding, you touched on the need for firefighters to be aware and to do their research, and there's a huge number of ways that they can do that using various internet sites. How would you, if we were going to leave firefighters in with some advice and guidance in respect to their next steps in following the line of fire blanket deployment, what would your recommendation be, Nikolai?
Yeah, so I'll probably say we definitely, I agree what you're saying. We are in a situation we are now, new solutions are being created, right? This is going to require us to have new tools. Those new tools are going to require new protocols, right? And yes, firefighters are in a situation where these new problems, new tools, new protocols need to be implemented. And I think it's we discussed it in the beginning. It's about, usually if you need help, you usually go and ask the person with most experience, and that's where you can think, okay, well that's a good, really good way of starting, right? So being able to compare protocols, being able to do your own research, and go and find the best product out there. We do have the best fire blankets in the market. Compare that to other products and see if that makes sense. Firefighters already have a lot of knowledge on fire also, that makes these conversations that we're having very easy and simple to understand for them. It comes very intuitive for them. A lot of these conversations for people who are not firefighters become very difficult. So I think that we need to have that kind of process as you were talking about, not have a focus on price, because as you focus on price, you may find firefighters implementing and adopting tools that are just not going to be what they are looking for right now. So our goals has always been to provide a tool that is simple, that is reliable, that it's going to solve the problem that you're trying to that you're facing right in front of you, that you don't need to utilize in conjunction with any other tool. And those are really important key elements, because as Paul was saying before, the more elements you start to implement and adopt in a situation, the higher the risk of failure becomes, because you're playing with more variables, right? Our main focus in this company is to really keep it simple, because having a world where there's going to potentially adopt fire blankets globally, it requires simplicity, because it's a very huge task. If we were to have a very complex protocol, a very complex protocol, adopting this, it will eventually lead on a lot of failure in the process, and that's what we want to avoid. And I think that's what we also want firefighters to understand.
Yeah, you can actually compare it to the car industry. For many years ago, you had a protocol that you just needed a lap belt around your waist. Well, maybe you should have had a helmet as an add-on if you would bump your head into the windshield. But now, with the protocols in today's modern vehicles and cars and so on, you have a 3-point belt, a solution that protects you really, really well. And that's the same thing with our protocol. The protocol is really important because, as we said before, if you have the best product, then you will also be able to have the safest protocol. So my point should be, I would recommend firefighters, well, if they want to compare the different products out there, the different Bridgehill blanket or the other brands out there, well, ask for protocols. Have the manufacturers send them the protocols, and then they can read which protocol do they like the best. Easy as that.
Exactly, and when you look at the simplicity of protocols, when a firefighter will routinely put on their firefighting uniform, their helmet, their gloves, and if there is the potential they're going to be exposed to any sort of harmful toxic gases, that they will immediately don their breathing apparatus. So that is second nature. They do that day in, day out. So the only thing they need to be able to do to safely deploy the fire blanket is to be able to take it out of his wrapper, hold on to the handles, and walk forward over the fire. So it doesn't get much simpler than that. And so when you're quite right. If something is simple, something is fit for purpose, and it comes with second nature, then people are going to use it. As soon as it's overcomplicated, they'll look at more simple ways rather than have to go through a complicated process. So it certainly is, in my view, the right methodology that Bridgehill are adopting there and recommending. We've gone on a whistle stop tour in the last half an hour, and having had the opportunity over the last week or so to look through the Bridgehill website, I would recommend anybody listening to this to look at the website. There is so much information on there, and that can be found at bridgehill.com. And again, if there's any additional questions you've got, then there's ways of contacting the team at Bridgehill, who I know will only be too happy to answer your questions. As I wrap up this podcast for today, I will reiterate my message that if you are responsible for buying any product for your crews to use, whichever industry you are in, you need and you have a duty to do your homework. You have a duty of care to those employees to ensure that you are buying something that is fit for purpose and meets the required standards. If you fail to do that, then you are putting lives at risk, and you can then be found liable. This is a common sense approach. Do your homework, find out what's out there, talk to the professionals like the team at Bridgehill so you know and you can evidence base what you have bought. It's too late when something goes wrong. Talk to the professionals. The money that's been put in by Bridgehill and others to make these products safe, it deserves you to talk to those guys and get the right information. Okay, that is the end of my sermon. Nikolai, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friends, to talk with you as always. I'm going to give you both an opportunity to come back and give me one thing, both of you, if the listener's going to take away from this, one thing that you think is the most important.
Yes, Duncan, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I think, the most important thing that I think that everyone should be thinking about right now is definitely to understand the difference between containment versus suppression, correlated with what it's going to be a problem. And it's going to be these heavy metals spreading to civilians. I myself, as a father, I find this incredibly important for society to understand, for firefighters to understand, because we're no longer talking about just firefighter risk, but civilian risk.
Yeah, for me, after deploying a Bridgehill car fire blanket, you do not need to use any water.
I'm Duncan White, and I've had the pleasure today of speaking to Nikolai Henriksson and Paul Amundsen from Bridgehill. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. I look forward to catching up with everybody on the next podcast. Take care.